Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are in the world. We are going out to everyone in the world, assuming you've got Twitter, of course. Welcome to today's Grain Market Blast with myself and the glamorous, with a capital G, Andy Setzer. It is all day. It's going to be Wednesday, the 30th of April, last day of the month. Make it count. As usual, the amazing, the wonderful, the magnificent Andy will be giving a rapid roundup of the latest pricing flows and market moving news in agricultural markets. But before she does, I will get the legals out the way because, as we already know, I am far too pretty for prison. As usual, nothing discussed in the space of session constitute trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ, myself, Ryan Paisley, or the glamorous Angie Setzer. Hello, my darling. How are you?
And I've got Fergie in my damn head again. Every time you say glamorous, that's all I can spell it. I can tell you, I can definitely spell it. So I love me a good old early 2000s dance. You know what I
Oh,
mean? Like
the
I just
best.
can't help it.
The
But anyway,
best.
happy Wednesday. I'm not really sure. Every week feels like a million days all shoved into one, but also at the same
Yeah.
time, one day. Like, do you feel that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's like what a week this month has been, or this month, a
Yeah.
month this week has been. It's the
You,
better way to
you,
say it.
you genuinely could have told me Easter was like start of the week, or you could have told me it was 6 months
Oh
ago,
yeah,
and I'd believe both.
that's I still feel like I'm stuck the weekend before Valentine's Day in my brain. Like it's February, but it's not February. It's garden
All right, look,
season.
I forgot to get you a card. Get
Right,
over it.
exactly. I'm stuck on it forever. But anyway, it's fine, I will say. But no, happy Wednesday. Lots of things going on, and also not a lot of things going on, which is kind of, I feel like that is what I've said more than once here over the last little
Yep.
bit. Is it's like there's a ton of, it's like we have the accelerator matched to the floor, but the breakdown as well. Like there's just, we're really, really moving, but we're not going anywhere. Yesterday was a rough day in the grain markets, and a lot of folks will say, "But Angie, what has happened?" And I will say to you, I'm not really sure. It does feel money flow related. So I was just talking to a really good friend of mine, and kind of said, if you look at the S&P 500 chart and you look at the corn chart, they're kind of a little bit of a flip flop of each other. You saw folks kind of move into grains over the last few weeks on the idea that we would have these big trade deals put together. We would have, an increase in grain demand as a result. And now we really haven't seen any trade deals put together, at least at this point, though the administration says one is coming. They just have to wait for confirmation. I remember it makes me feel like high school again. Like, are we dating? No? Okay. I'm waiting for Monday morning at school. But, just it's one of those things that we're kind of watching, trying to pay attention to, see what's going on. But at the same time, the fear in the outside markets that all heck is going to break loose, it's still there. Like we're seeing these thoughts of recession and all of these other things, the stock market, this, that, and the other. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of concern, whatever, but you've seen money kind of or you're seeing an unwind, I think, of the spread trade. The selling the equities and the buying of the grains is now kind of flip-flopped. And to a certain
Yeah.
extent, fundamentally speaking, grain doesn't really have a big reason. Corn, wheat, soybeans, there's no weather concern that's really present in the market at this point in time. Maybe there's a good decent amount of rain that's falling across parts of the US, but really planting will get underway, once we dry out here in another few days. You'll probably see by the middle of May we'll be, over half planted like we need to be. And really just kind of a matter of seeing what the summer market brings
Yeah.
with it. But yeah, I mean, from an overall standpoint, you did see yesterday, one of the things that a lot of folks have kind of discussed is the China deals, or it's got a lot of press, let's say, or a lot of back and forth on China looking to reduce the inclusion rates. I don't know if you saw that or not, but they're talking about reducing their new food security push, and that might have been part of why you saw the grains under some extreme pressure with the idea that China is going to be in this thing for the long haul. They put out a movie yesterday with English subtitles, slamming the trade war, calling us a bully, and are now saying that like we're going to cut the amount of stuff we need, the amount of feed grains we need, the amount of soybean meal that we're using. We have these new targets in place by 2030, and a lot of folks got kind of worked up about them. They would cap feed grain inclusion at 60%, and cap soybean meal at around 10. Realistically speaking, like in a normal year, currently anyway, you're looking at around 65 to 70% of an inclusion of feed grain. So it's really not, like that 5 to 10%, I'm not going to say is a small amount of a couple 100 million metric ton. Like obviously that matters. But on the meal side of things, a target cap of 10% in 5 years, it would be down from the current 13% cap, but it's not out of like the realm of possibility. We saw this a couple years back where they were reducing their feed inclusion rate, their meal inclusion rates. They got down to as low as like 7.5% for a while. I'm going to cough. I'm going to mute myself real quick.
I told you. No,
Just easier.
I've got no clean ones. So yeah, quick move on.
I have to be quick so we don't embarrass ourselves. But anyway, so you've got that back and forth on the China side of things. I think there's just been sentiment, and that's one of the things I'm trying to kind of express, or I feel like I continuously am working to express to my farmers that I work with, is like we operate on a pendulum. Sentiment and expectations on the market. We always talk about how emotional women are. I mean, they haven't met male commodity traders, I don't think, then at that point, right? Yeah. And so, it's one of those things where we're kind of on the other swing of the pendulum. It is interesting to note, though, like we did get some economic data out of China last night that is worrisome. It does show that, there are factors at play. There's more stories that we're hearing out of China as well. Kind of this separation, like if you have money, if you're connected into an industry like an electric vehicle or something like that, you're going to kind of cheer for the Xi and his cohorts to really push back against the US. If you're looking more blue collar, you're working in manufacturing and some of these other things, the sentiment is not quite the same. And, for good reason. We're starting to see factory activity came in well below expectations in China with the sharpest month over month drop since like December of 23. New export orders fell to December 22 lows last month for China. You know what I mean? And demand for products into the US is basically non-existent at this point. We've almost put an embargo in place. And these other global economies are like, yo, dude, like you can't dump that shit here. Like we can't take it either. And so it's a back and forth. It's a sentiment thing. And now we're kind of leaning in the direction of, okay, this China trade war is going to take far longer than what we thought. And I think that's partly, influencing this big unwind. I think folks thought we would see phase one, in a handful of days or whatever. We'd all go back to singing Kumbaya with one another. We're just not there yet. And so it is what it is. That is trade. I think that's just China. I don't even know. There's so many things going on. Geopolitically speaking, I do think, there is talk right now that the Ukraine's economy minister is coming to the U.S. to potentially sign the natural resources deal. To me, I don't know what your thoughts are on this. I was going to ask your opinion, but to me, I feel like that's a big deal. Like, I don't know if you need a peace agreement if you start to put Russia on the spot when it comes to potentially attacking what are now U.S. interests.
Yeah, right. This is it. I think, it feels like, are they kind of getting this through? And there's a chance. We heard this morning, well, like an hour ago even, that potentially a deal could be signed today.
It could be today. Yeah, as exactly quickly as today.
On Polymarket, the odds absolutely ramped higher that we'll get a solution to this or an agreement in place by May. And obviously that means today.
Yeah.
I just can't actually. Oh yeah, so we're up to about a 40% chance from a near 0% chance, because obviously there's only so many hours left in the day. I think we're at like a 1% chance, and now we're at a 40% chance.
You should have bought the calls, right? You should have bought the calls.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda, right?
Right, exactly.
And so my hindsight trading account is near unmatched.
I know, you should see mine. It's perfect.
I really get a loser. But no, but you're exactly right. I think if all of a sudden, if there is, if the US has a commercial interest in Ukraine minerals, we know what Trump's like. He'll want to extract that commercial option as soon as possible.
Immediately. Yes.
So, immediately. We have had over the last week or so, increasingly Trump being kind of vocally kind of lambasting Putin for his strikes and stuff. So I think potentially this could be the carrot that we all need to get a peace agreement over the line.
Well, not to mention, if we truly are playing 4D chess and Trump really wants to help bolster US energy, he would put pretty hefty sanctions on Russian oil exports and grain exports potentially.
There you
If
go.
you aren't afraid of inflation and some of these other things, there are cards he
Yeah.
can play. And to
Also,
see
just to
Ukraine
stress
do this, yeah, go
just
ahead.
just to stress, we talk about 4D chess. I'm limited to snakes and ladders.
Yeah, I play Trouble. I don't even know. I got nothing. Yahtzee. I'm a Yahtzee player. I have it takes no skill. It's all just luck. But what are you gonna do? And so this could be one of the things we watch because I do think that this could be an interesting change in dynamic. I think it could
Yeah.
be
Yeah,
something
yeah,
that
yeah.
maybe folks aren't really factoring in for Ukraine. Like, hey, we aren't going to get a peace deal. Let's sign the mineral deal. And the other thing that is of interest that the U.S. is not going to count the military aid that it has already given. So there's been argument over whether it's 300 billion, 11 bajillion, 77,000 trillion. You know what I mean? And so now we're not going to matter. It's a blank slate. It's all
Yeah.
new stuff. So that's interesting. Other thing, geopolitically speaking, that might matter, like in case you were like, God, we just don't have enough wars going on in the world today. Pakistan and India are now really so. The India's prime minister had a closed door meeting yesterday. Reports indicate that he basically gave his military what he's calling complete operational freedom to deal with the situation between them and Pakistan. Pakistan and India have been exchanging gunfire. For those of you who haven't been kind of,
Yeah.
like I said, there's so many things. Like maybe you haven't noticed this one. It might be a news story in another world in which we would be living, but and it is a news story. Don't get me wrong, but it's just not. There's so many other things.
Yes.
So there was a terrorist attack a couple weeks ago. There's a region that's kind of held by both, but no one at the same time. And there's been some simmers here or there or whatever, but now it's coming to a boil because basically were Pakistani nationals that carried out this terrorist attack. Pakistan and India, not the greatest of friends, or at least haven't been over the years. India is saying it's Pakistan's fault. Pakistan's saying we
Yeah.
didn't do this, that we had no involvement in it. But if you attack us, which Pakistan says they have great military intelligence pointing that India is getting ready to launch an attack on Pakistan soil, they're saying if you attack us, you will be met with a decisive response.
Yeah.
Now, important to note that both of these countries are nuclear powers with nuclear weapons, though they've not launched either of them. That's always just been a concern to pay attention
Or,
to. So,
do you know what?
yeah,
Also on this, so two things on this. One is anecdotal, but one is a headline that hit yesterday. We had insight that the Indian government have basically said to their army, or the leaders of the army, look, whatever you want to
have at
do.
it.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. No, that was that was genuinely pretty much what the headline was. It's like the Indian government have turned around to the military and said, we trust your response. You decide what to do next. Which, Christ,
Yeah,
that's a bit of a risky one. But also,
yeah,
secondly, one of my favorite all-time TV series, West Wing. Absolutely
yes,
great series. There's it all kicks off between India and Pakistan on there, and obviously, as we know, West Wing are very, very good on terms of like who they get involved and stuff and the historical context. There's a one of the episodes on there where there's kind of trying to simmer down this escalation. They get in like one of the experts, and he rightly so goes on about how, and as you mentioned, they've not been the best of friends. They've actually been like the worst of enemies since partition.
yes, yes,
In the 60s, 50s, whatever year it was. Sorry, my memory's not exactly great. I wasn't alive then, by the way. But yeah, so these two countries are very, 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 very fueled by hatred towards one another. And like you said, they both have nuclear weapons pointed at each other. Now, we're not saying
yeah.
for a second that they're going to be used, but it's
No, we
one of
have
those
no idea. Yeah,
it's going to be
but
one of those
it's
things to just bear in mind.
yeah, keep an eye on it. Like I said, just in case you thought to yourself, golly, we could use another war. Definitely something to pay attention to. But also, you've got China and the Philippines at each
Yeah,
other's throat, too.
yeah, well, this is
In
it,
case
right?
you haven't been watching that one,
And
they're
also, like,
also fighting
even this morning, we had a headline this morning
another thing. Yeah.
that New Zealand and the Philippines are kind of like re-upping or like really increasing their kind of joint military kind of partnerships and stuff, which APAC set that a whole environment that's going to piss China off, right?
Right.
And New Zealand are a very secure partner with the West. It's just it'll be just our luck, Angie. It's like soon as we get a peace agreement in Ukraine and Russia, it'll all kick off somewhere else. It's just the way
Well,
things are.
that's and Russia is heavily involved in a lot of the other things. So you
Yeah,
still have Iran and Israel. There's still just a conversation that Israel may do something
I
with
almost
Iran,
forgot
and
about that. Yeah.
so deep breaths, have fun. It'll just be a lot of stuff to pay attention to. we're just basically, if it's not one thing, it's another. And
Yeah,
so,
exactly that.
the final sort of bullet point of importance today is, like I said, I kind of touched on it this morning. The administration said it's waiting for confirmation from the other country that it can say that we are official on Facebook. And onlookers are speculating who that might be. They think it might be India, it could be Japan. Some have said South Korea, but like South Korea came out at the beginning of the week and said it's not us, dog.
Yeah,
But maybe it is. And so we've had Lutnick and Besant kind of making their way around the media. EU is said to be prepared to present a package of goods that says will bring stability back to the region, or the relationship anyway. And if the US doesn't accept it, then they have their response in tow. So we'll see what that all has
yeah,
to bring with it too. And then weather wise, like I said, it looks like we'll get, this week will be pretty wet. There'll be some areas of flooding and areas of concern. It appears in the southern plains where they've been exceptionally dry. It either is drought or flood down that way, I feel like, and I feel so bad. Carl's like, we should move the Texas Panhandle. I'm like, we shall not ever do that. Never.
or
But
London.
right, yeah, London I think I could handle a little bit better. But no, we'll see what the weather brings. Right now there are no weather concerns. I will say this again, like when there's rain on the map, traders assume rain makes grain. And so you'll see some things under pressure because of it. But from an overall standpoint, fundamentally speaking, grains, soybeans, all of that stuff, like the story has not changed.
No.
Yesterday was not an indication of a fundamental shift in any way. It's just more of an indication of sentiment. And then, of course, if we see, where like right now, and it's hard because we're shifting to the July board on the front month. So I kind of get caught watching May for a while and just old trading ranges and things like that.
Yeah,
But, on the May board, the soybean board 1030 had been really solid support. We're currently trading below that. If we fail to hold or fail to recover above that level, I feel like we probably see another 25 to 30 cents of downside potential
yeah.
in soybeans. Something to watch. Corn hopefully will hold its support because we're right at an important level. Wheat, the same, traded to new lows yesterday. So we really just got to see some buyers come back in. But with a lack of a weather story or lack of, we had another flash sale today. So corn demand is really good. But yeah, here we sit. Let's see what happens. But we just opened. Corn's up a couple, wheat's up a couple, 3 cents, and beans are down another 13 to start the day.
Amazing. Angie,
Yeah.
thank you for being your awesome self as usual. Listeners, I know you're probably tired of me saying it, but we really do appreciate you listening in. And hopefully we see you all, well, you hear us all tomorrow. Have a good one. If you are out and the fields are working, please stay safe. If you're trading, keep it tight. We love you lots. See you tomorrow.
Have a good one.
Bye bye.